Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute. Now, here's your host of the Curtis Riggs Show, the voice of the Sioux Falls Storm, Rich Frosty.
And good afternoon, and hi, everybody. I'm Rich Frosty, and welcome to the Curtis Riggs Show. And today's show is going to be just a little bit different than most of the Curtis Riggs shows this season, because we're going to be spending some extra time talking about and reliving the Storm's overtime win down in Phoenix over the Rattlers, 69-68. And this win was so satisfying in so many different ways, and we'll talk about that with the head coach, Curtis Riggs. And we're also going to be talking about the other playoff game that took place over the weekend as the Iowa Barnstormers defeated the Nebraska Danger 48-17 in Des Moines. Then during our last segment with Coach, we'll be talking about the last three games and what they've meant to this team. Also on the show, we'll be talking to Storm quarterback Lorenzo Brown. The Storm will be playing in the Iowa Barnstormers in the United Bowl. That's going to be on July 7th in Des Moines. Game time is at 7:05, and you can hear that game on our sister station, Kello News Talk, AM 1320 and FM 107.9. The Curtis Riggs Show is proudly presented each week by the official Storm sports medicine providers, Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital, the Storm official healthcare team, and the only 5-star rated hospital in Sioux Falls, and by Orthopedic Institute, the one to trust. Coming up next, the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs, and you're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN.
The biggest difference in Boyer and other truck dealerships is the fact that we're an employee-owned company. From the front of the building with the sales to the back of the building with service and parts, you're dealing with the owner of the company. We have the smallest vehicles all the way up to the biggest vehicles. We're a truck dealer by heart, and by design, we deal in the whole gamut of the vehicles. There's not a lot of dealers that do that. This is a relationship business, and I enjoy the relationships a lot.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Frosty.
And each week, our opening interview with the Storm head coach, Curtis Riggs, is brought to you by the great folks over at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Storm sponsors since day one. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Come see what fresh really is, and they deliver anywhere in Sioux Falls, and their subs are just breader. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, Curtis Riggs. Welcome back, both of us, to the nice wet conditions here in the Midwest compared to the hot, dry conditions down in Phoenix, Arizona over the weekend.
Yeah, it's quite a difference in the climate, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Well, this first segment, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in the other game that went on this weekend, and they're calling this the United Conference Championship game. The Storm was involved in the intense conference championship game, even though there were no conferences. They decided to designate it that way because I think they might have had trophies left over with those designations, and that's how they worked things out.
Yeah, I wondered that same thing about when I saw Iowa getting a trophy, and then we were presented with one also, and it said we were in the intense conference. I wasn't aware of this. It was new to me, but yeah, it's whatever. I mean, it's great to be recognized for winning a game, though.
Well, there's no doubt about that, and they had to decide and have a differentiation in some regard, and that's probably about the best way that they could have worked it out. But anyway, Nebraska Danger goes down to Iowa, to the Barnstormers, and Iowa wins that game 48-17, and the game was actually fairly close through three quarters. It was 27-17 at the end of three, but then Iowa cracked off 21 unanswered points and showed their dominance in that game. We were traveling during that time. You had any chance to review that game at all or take a look at it?
No, not a lot, just a little bit. I mean, it looked like, especially the first quarter, Nebraska came out to play, and then it just seemed like the amount of mistakes they were making, you knew Iowa eventually was going to capitalize and take advantage of them, and that's exactly what they did.
And for the night, quarterback Drew Powell, he was 10 of 13, 111 yards of passing offense. He had no interceptions. He had 2 passing touchdowns. Not surprising, he had 15 carries, 46 yards. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. The wide receiver, Ryan Ballantyne, had the majority of the touchdowns. He had 2, and he had 3 catches for 45 yards. Not a lot of surprises, were there, as far as what you've been able to garner as far as the Iowa Barnstormers?
No. I mean, they acquired 2 defensive linemen the last week of transactions, and they played 1. But they rotate, and their D coordinator does a nice job of rotating guys up front, protecting his linebacker, and really they've done a good job all season of keeping a pretty collective group on their roster without having to make a lot of changes or fighting through a lot of injuries.
We're not going to talk a lot about the Iowa Barnstormers in this edition of the Curtis Riggs Show. We'll save that for next week. We'll talk about that in more detail. Later on in the show, we're just going to talk about this season, and especially the last 3 games, and how that's been an impact for the Sioux Falls Storm as a team. But just briefly about the Iowa Barnstormers, their defense had 3 interceptions, 5 broken passes. They had a sack, and they had 4 tackles for loss. They also had an interception. Rocky Hayes had a 34-yard interception return for a touchdown. Wind up having 4 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. And Iowa took care of business to make themselves eligible for the championship game. They did what they needed to do. Probably didn't show too much, but they are a team that is probably very anxious to face the Sioux Falls Storm again.
Well, that's interesting. I think the game was not a surprise to anyone, meaning the Nebraska-Iowa game. I'm sure, they are. I'm sure they want the shot at playing us again, but they also know we beat them twice.
Mm-hmm.
And, that too sits in their mind. But it's 2 very similar teams. A good mix of veteran guys that have played a long time, that know that when mistakes are made, the other team's going to capitalize. And that's been the difference in the previous games.
So the Sioux Falls Storm are going to be taking on the Iowa Barnstormers in the United Bowl. That's going to be coming up on July 7th, 7 o'clock down in Des Moines. And we'll have the game for you on our sister station, KELO AM 1320 and FM 107.9. Also, I wanted to mention something about things going on around the IFL. It was announced this past week that Cedar Rapids has a new ownership group. Roy Choi, out of California, businessman. He's the managing partner of the Knighted Ventures, a California-based company investing and managing projects in entertainment and gaming. And have you heard anything more about the new ownership and having Cedar Rapids stay within the IFL for this next year?
The ownership, I have not. I have very little to do with any of that. But I have heard they are going to stay in Cedar, at least for 1 year for sure, to try to see what they can do to turn things around, not be recognized as a football and soccer organization, just football. And I think they've got some work ahead of them. They've got to really rekindle and build back those relationships that have kind of been torn apart just because, one, a lack of communication. It was such a strong area in community support-wise, and I think they kind of just gave up on that and just threw the product out there and hoped for the best. And you still got to put a lot of work in outside of just the performance on the field, and hopefully this new ownership realizes that.
One thing about it, it is a great road trip. It's nice to have a bus trip that's very reasonable. It's an easy trip down there. Tough place to play with their small end zones, but at one time that place was really rocking with fans, and hopefully they can bring it back because that'd be a great addition back into the IFL.
Well, and I think it's a good location, for Des Moines and Green Bay, and even us. You're right. I mean, it's not a bad road trip, and you're right. When they were really good, it was a very difficult place to play.
Well, Coach, when we come back, we're going to start talking and reliving about this game we had down in Arizona this past weekend. It was one for the ages as far as I was concerned. We had a lot of people contributed to it. I have a lot of highlights. We haven't done highlights for a long time. on the Curtis Riggs Show. So we're going to be reliving some of those moments because it was a very special win for the Sioux Falls Storm. So, Coach, hang in there. We'll be coming right back at you and talking about the game down in Arizona.
All right, I look forward to it, Rich.
Each week, our opening interview with Storm head coach Curtis Riggs is brought to you by the great folks over at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Storm sponsors since day one. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Come see what fresh really is, and they deliver anywhere in Sioux Falls, and their subs are just breader. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Riggs Show right after this.
So you need to see
If you like to bowl, roll on into Eastway Bowl. Hey, wait a minute. Eastway Bowl is more than just bowling. It's a full of fun entertainment center. There's many things to do. Games, and more games, plus food. Great food. Come into our full-service sports bar and grill where you'll find terrific drinks with our popular late-night specials. Watch all your favorite sporting events at Eastway. Visit our website to make your bowling reservations and find out more about the full fun experience. Eastway Bowl and Entertainment Center, where there's something for everyone.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And the Storm Weekly Game Recap is brought to you by Eastway Bowl, the perfect spot for family fun. Eastway Sports Lounge, the official Storm road game viewing party hosts. And the next viewing party is Saturday, July 7th for the United Bowl. And I have made a request to the leagues that we can have two coverages for both teams, so the audio for the Sioux Falls Storm would be on one broadcast. We will find out if that, in fact, is approved by the league for the United Bowl on July 7th. He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, rejoining us. And, Coach, you know, we go down to Phoenix, Arizona, and we come away with the win in overtime, 69-68. And I think about that. That game was, that win was so satisfying in so many different ways, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a great win. I mean, you talk about just the last three games, how crazy they've all been. But I think this was probably one of the more memorable games.
When you think about it, you know, the Storm had lost 3 games in a row to Arizona, lost to United Bowl last year, then also 2 losses this season. And going down to that game, there were many that didn't feel that the Sioux Falls Storm really had much of a chance to defeat Arizona down there.
Yeah, we had heard quite a bit about no one really gave us a shot. Many people, in fact, predicted us to lose by double digits. And I think everyone was just anticipating it's going to be Iowa and Arizona in the title game again. And you know, I don't know if that really motivated the guys. I think they were very focused even beforehand, before hearing all this. But the one thing as coaches that we just tried to stress is that and I told this earlier, that it's not like this was, you know, the movie Miracle and it's the Russians against the Americans, where the Russians are clearly a better team, but, you know, it just takes one chance, one opportunity to beat them. And that was that night. That wasn't the case at all here, Rich. And we felt like we were just as good, if not better, than Arizona. And the team that would beat us would be us when we played Arizona. Mm-hmm. You know, in the championship game last year, 3 turnovers. The game down in Arizona this year when we had the early turnover, or I'm sorry, the turnover for the safety at the end of the game that really cost us. We felt like if we could play pretty clean football, we could definitely come out of there with a win.
Also, it was great playing in front of a crowd like that down there. They announced 16,000, probably closer as far as the actual in the seats probably was maybe 14, but still a big crowd. And to win in an environment like that was a very satisfying thing. Plus, winning qualifies the Storm to play in the United Bowl.
Yeah, you know, you really have to tip your hat. Arizona, they bring such a sense of professionalism to our league that every organization, including the Storm, you know, should try to work to try to get to, because just from their game day management to their setup of how they handle everything from the opposing teams coming in to, you know, just how they they market in their area, how they the fan interaction to their game day music and all the things they do to get the crowd involved, and it's really, really well done. And you're right, to go in there and play in front of that crowd and to come out with a win it was great to come out of there. And we just won that game, and we played pretty good football in front of a really cool environment.
Well, we have a lot of highlights to go through because there's a lot of people that made some really big plays and had great contributions to this win, and we're going to go through them. And after Arizona's running back, Darrell Monroe, went down with an injury, Arizona kind of went and changed their philosophy, changed their game plan. Some came out more throwing, and the Storm followed suit. It's going to be first down and 15 yards to go for the Sioux Falls Storm. The ball resting at their own 19. Now Lorenzo Brown puts two in motion. Back to pass, play action, rolls to his right side. Plenty of time, going to down the left side, looking there for McComb. He caught it, bounces off the wall, into the end zone. Yes! Touchdown, Sioux Falls Storm, as the Storm goes airborne. And they bring that down to Lyle McCombs as the Sioux Falls Storm take this from the 19-yard line, 31 yards on that touchdown completion, and the Storm trailing by a point, 14-13. And tell us about how Arizona kind of changed after Monroe went down and how the Storm kept matching them, throwing the football and running the ball.
Well, I think when Monroe went down, they went from, we're going to run this down your throat, to, we're going to get our skilled guys involved a little bit more. We'll get Reed involved a little bit more, and throw a little bit more too. And I thought he played really well. Reed did. I thought he was the offensive player of the year, rookie offensive player of the year last year for a reason, and he showed that in this game. We didn't do much to rattle him all night long. But yeah, we came out. That was a play that we just felt like worked really well against a certain front that they presented, and we actually had it in the second half too. And we had a little confusion up front with our blocking assignment because as we ran it, Lyle again was open, but Zoe just couldn't get his foot down the plant and throw it to him.
Well, I'll tell you what, special teams were a very important part of this game, starting with this highlight.
Powell is back as the Storm moving from left to right on your radio. Fans on their feet here. Crowd on hand here in Phoenix. Very high end over end. It's going to be a little bit shorter. It's going to be at the 2-yard line. Up the center goes Powell. Breaks it. Opening. 20, 25, 20, 15, 10. Can he go? Yes, he can. Powell, help me. A kick return of 48 yards. And the Sioux Falls Storm have tied this game at 27. Oh, my.
And I tell you what, that can get a team started, can it?
Yeah, it works two ways, though, Rich. It works where it definitely gets the team excited and involved, but the thing I also found, your offense sits for a while, and we were playing really well, and then you start to sit for a while, you come back out, and, then later on, we throw that pig, and that's not why, but, it does take it has some effect, though, I think, and but you'll take those when you get them. And Damon had a great night, and there was a stretch in the second half or in the first half where they just could not stop him, either kick return or just running routes. He really played well.
Well, the Storm is down by 13, and this next highlight proved to be a very big turning point in the game.
Scored in this first half. Now this time Bergner is going to be able to kick it. No timeouts remaining for Arizona. Waiting for the snap. There it is. It's high. It's well placed. It's kicked. It's on the way. And it is up. And it is good. And Bergner hits from 41 yards. And we go to halftime with a 10-point game. It's the Arizona Rattlers 48 and the Sioux Falls Storm 38.
And that was a huge factor, wasn't it, Coach?
I thought it was really one of the bigger plays in the game. that people just don't even notice. And people probably look at it more as just kind of saving us. I thought going in at down 10 compared to down to 13 is really a big difference. And it gave us some sense of satisfaction going in knowing that we scored a touchdown. You know, we just got to get a stop. And we really talked a lot about that their quarterback played as well as he could the first half. Now they're going to have to play with some pressure, meaning playing with a lead can really be tough. Playing with a lead, I think a lot of times, can be tougher than when you're playing from behind because the expectation is already set. The expectations that the other team's got it locked in, they've got this game wrapped up, and you start to play scared and afraid not to make mistakes. Whereas first half, you know, Arizona just came after us. I mean, they really played well, especially offensively. And second half, you could see how they started to change how they were calling plays. They weren't attacking us as much, and we were able to get just enough stops and make things tough on them.
Well, that was a very big play. We go into halftime at a 10-point difference. Storm had won the toss, and you're going to get the ball to start the second half. And when we come back, we'll talk about that second half down in Phoenix. And you're listening to this recap brought to you by Eastway Bowl. Perfect spot for family fun. The next viewing party, July 7th for the United Bowl. We'll be back with more of the Curtis Riggs Show right after this.
The Sheraton Sioux Falls Hotel is proud to...
The Rosties wanted their new house to be unique, so they went back to Fireplace Pros. The upstairs is traditional, but the downstairs is very modern. They are delighted.
We wanted a different look and feel within our house, and Fireplace Pros, as always, helped us make it happen. They're the best.
Visit us on the web or stop by your nearest Heat & Glow or Heatilator dealer. Fireplace Pros, Heat & Glow, and Heatilator. You're going to love the way your home feels.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosty.
And this segment of the Curtis Riggs Show brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And joining me with on the Curtis Riggs Show is the head coach, Curtis Riggs. And at halftime, you go in with a 10-point deficit. The Storm starts out the second half with a touchdown. And then the Storm defense comes up with this big play. 3rd down and 7. Need to get to the 24-yard line of Sioux Falls to pick up the first down. 2 in motion on the right side. Rolling to the right is Reed. Under pressure there by Davis. And Davis trips him up enough to lose balance. And getting in there to bring him down finally was Lewis Palmer. Sacked way back to the 9-yard line. Loss of 10. And that's exactly what you had talked about before we went to break, the going out of halftime to get a score and then get a stop. And that was a huge stop in that game.
It was. Yeah, I mean, we were feeling like we were getting chances. We just couldn't make the plays. And we did a pretty good job on 3rd downs, but 4th downs, they were 4 or 5. And we felt like we had them try a quarterback sneak on 3rd down, and we stuffed it. And they went for it on 4th down from like their 15-yard line, and we had a chance to come up and make a tackle for a 2-yard loss. And we struggled to make some big tackles, but that was one where we finally did. We got some pressure and got the big sack, and it really changed the whole dynamics of the game. For the night, the Storm defense had 4 tackles for loss, 1 broken pass, 1 block kick, and a sack. Damon Smith was the leading tackler with 12.5. Jabari Gorman had 7.5, and Desmond Reed had 5.5. We'll talk about Desmond Reed in a little bit. But after that big defensive stand, the Storm comes back and does this. Lorenzo Brown, 3rd down and about 4 for the Sioux Falls Storm. 2 in motion, left slot. There's the snap. Lorenzo Brown fakes the handoff. He goes upfield. He got the room. 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Into the end zone. Yes! Holy help me, Anna. The Sioux Falls Storm get the touchdown as Lorenzo Brown on a quarterback draw takes it all away from the 22 and scores. And the Sioux Falls Storm have taken the lead 51-48. And the Storm had overcome a 13-point deficit at that particular time. And that was just fantastic for the Storm in that situation. It was. We finally, in the first half, we had a lot of quick drives and couldn't really establish any type of run game. And the second half, they changed because all the passes we were doing, and then we were able to start running the ball, and we wore down that big nose guard, and the guys up front really played well, and they were aggressive, attacking, and worked well together on our zone schemes.
And their offensive line did not give up a sack during the course of that game.
Yeah, I don't remember one. I mean, I know they really did a good job. Warsaw, who kind of struggled a little bit last time we played Arizona, had a phenomenal game. Jabari let Chris McAllister shoot inside on him one time, but Zoe was kind of able to get out and throw it away. And then Lawrence really had a great game. And on that run that you just played, Lawrence, they have such a good double team, and he comes off the linebacker, and then he's able to get out to almost get the free safety, and is just about running side to side with Lorenzo. And to see a man that big move that well, it was pretty eye-opening.
It's always fun to talk about the offensive line. I don't often bring enough about that during the course of the broadcast, but I did want to talk about them because they had such a great night, and Lawrence had his hands full with that big nose guard that they had, and Lawrence just shows how good he is at that center spot.
He is, yeah, and the line was, we were at the airport in Phoenix, and one of the security guys came up to me, one of the police officers, and said, "Are you Coach Riggs?" And I was like, well, depends on why you're asking me. And he goes, "Coach, just want you to know that the offensive line is the key to success for any organization." And then I could see Lawrence and Jabari in the back just giggling. And I offered to the officer, I said I would give him $5 if he would go over and just tase one of them. But he informed me he's not able to accept bribes or use his taser that way. So,
yeah, chances are it probably bounce off of those guys.
Yeah, I wondered, and then I was trying to get what kind of voltage would you have to use on guys like that?
Yeah, if you've ever stood next to Forstall Hickman, it's amazing. He's 6'8", 340 pounds, and he is just the softest spoken guy. But he puts on a uniform. All those guys, they just take on a different persona. Well, I tell you what, in that second half, it goes back and forth. Like I said, there was 13 lead changes that I counted during the course of that game. And it's tied right now at 62. And Arizona is set up to kick what could be the winning field goal. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. We'll play this highlight first. 55-52. And now Ford and Harold split to the right side. Left side's going to be Powell. Lorenzo Brown under center. Pitches it, goes there to McCombs. Makes a great move. Cuts inside of Langford into the end zone. Touchdown. What? How did he reverse directions, cut inside, and get the touchdown? Lyle McCombs, oh my. That was just a pretty run.
It was. And, Lyle had a great game. And what people don't realize is they don't see it, but Lyle, he blocked that linebacker all night long and did an outstanding job. And when we called on him to make, run routes, and he did it all. And, that linebacker's a big kid. I mean, he's probably 6'3", 240 pounds, and Lyle is nowhere close to that.
No.
And he would run right up to that line of scrimmage and beat him every time and take him on, and he really was nowhere around Lorenzo.
Then this happens. A 24-yard attempt out of the hold of Jeff Ziemba. Waiting for the snap. Here's the rush. The kick goes up. It's no good! It's no good! It's no good! We're tied! And there's 4 seconds on the clock. It's no good! We are tied at 62 as Petrie pushed it to the right side. You could hear the crowd in the background. I could hardly be heard because they were cheering so much because they knew that was going to be the winning score. And when it went wide, I think I was the only one saying anything in that whole facility and 16,000 people.
Well, I mean, you're right. Yeah, it was just such a given that they were going to make that. And I was still so mad that I just really felt like we should have got a touchdown out of the previous drive. And Miles comes out, does a great job as he did all night long, knocks it down to tie it. And then they come down, and it was really a tough situation for us because the clock, our timeouts were almost useless, and that's why we tried that challenge. We tried the challenge because we felt like on fourth down, that's our one shot. If we could get that holding call, now they would be, instead of 4th and 4, they would have been 4th and 14, and probably would have had to try a long field goal, and we would have had clock. We would have had time to get the ball back. And when we didn't win it, then it was like, well, let's get it down to this field goal and see what we can do. And thankfully it worked out for us.
And he missed it wide to the right side, 24-yard field goal, and he missed it to the right side. So the game goes into overtime, and Arizona scores first, but then this happens. So now Ziemba will do the holding for Petrie, who missed the last kick was a field goal. Snap off to the side. It's blocked! It's blocked! And the ball is going to be recovered there by Petrie. But the kick is blocked, and it is a 6-point ball game. And Desmond Reed credited for that block. That's his second block. He also had that blocked kick against Iowa, and it was stunned. Everybody was stunned at that particular point. It's a 6-point ball game, and the Storm is coming up to bat for their chance in overtime.
Yeah, and Coach Johnson did a great job. His 44 was just such a big kid. He was definitely a weakness on their field goal team, and we saw it early in the game because we felt like we ran him over twice, and he just tackled our guys. We felt like there was 2 clear holding calls that did not get called on field goals, which a lot of times there's leeway on those, and the ref will kind of judge, was the kick gone? Then I saw the hold. If so, we're not going to call it. And but you could see that 44 wasn't on the same wavelength as the offensive lineman up front, and we did a great job of crossing his face and then letting Dez come around. And he didn't even get touched. I mean, he came right through, and then so often you see guys come through but then miss it. He did a nice job of staying right in the lane, getting the block, and then right away you saw the excitement and the hope of our guys knowing, hey, we got a chance here to win this now.
Well, the Storm gets their possession in the overtime, and this happens. Lorenzo Brown back to pass with time. End zone. It's there. It's caught. It's a touchdown. Holy help me, Hannah. We're tied at 68. A one-play drive. And now the point after touchdown for the win for the Sioux Falls Storm. Oh, my. Oh, my. And I can't even tell you who got that touchdown. Everybody was standing down here. And it was Damian Ford that got the touchdown, and he's an impact player for the Storm, hasn't he been?
He has. Yeah, he and Damon Powell both have been magnificent for us. And we ran the same play earlier and got Powell on a touchdown, and this time we went the other way and got Ford on one. He ran a great route, but really Judd Harold goes across and is able to get 2 guys to jump him, and that's what gives Ford the room to have the opening, and Lorenzo puts it in a perfect spot, but you can't see it when you watch it on film, though. Damian does a great job of going up, getting the ball at a high point, and then right away keeping the ball away from the defender and not letting him have a chance of knocking it out of his hands as he was coming down. And a great throw, great catch, and really good play.
And Lorenzo Brown for the night, 13 of 22, 167 yards. He had an interception, but he had 4 passing touchdowns, 11 carries, 72 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 7 touchdowns for the night. And we're going to have him on the show a little bit later, and he just plays with such heart.
He does. Yeah, and as we've talked about, just very resilient. And, it didn't seem like – it seemed like he had a higher passing percentage in the game, but there were some tough throws. And, that second quarter where we threw the pick and then we came out the next drive and struggled to get that field goal, it was a tough one for us. But after that, he really played great football.
Well, I tell you what, it all comes down to this.
And here's the kick for the win for the Sioux Falls Storm. It's off to the side. There's the kick. It's up. It's right in the middle of the net. And the Sioux Falls Storm win 69-68. Holy help me, head. I'm having a heart attack in Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, my. What a ball game. The Storm wins 69-68. And they'll be played on July 7th against the Iowa Barnstormers in the United Bowl.
Keep it going. Did they cut it off? Oh, my, that's too bad. The reason I wanted to, because at the very end I said, well, the paramedics are on the way. But somehow that got
joking about, Rich.
It was that type of a finish. It was a heart-stopping finish, and I said the paramedics are on the way. So anyway, it turned out fine. But anyway, what a finish! Bergner had what a night. 9 of 9 point-after touchdowns, 2 for 2 field goals, 30 and 41 yards, and the poise. He just went out there and kicked it. It was just no doubt about it.
Well, he didn't miss the kick at all. I mean, even when Coach Guy tried to ice him, even the practice kick he got, he knocked it right down the middle. He really has come in and been the guy that we were hoping for. And because, he got a rough start to be in the season, and he never was able to kick with goalposts, and rarely even now is he able to. But you can just tell he's very locked in, and it's a difference maker when you get this far. And last year, Petrie was that guy. He against us made 3 field goals in the championship game, and it's nice to know you can rely on Miles going out. As I'm pouting about not getting a touchdown, he goes out there and knocks down the game-tying field goal.
Well, Coach, we've talked a lot about this game. It was a great win. We've enjoyed it. We've got 2 weeks now to get ready for United Bowl. But any other final comments about this game down in Arizona?
No. I mean, just great game. It was a great game, great environment. It was a lot of fun. And we can't lose focus so that it was just the semifinal, though. There's one more still.
That's exactly right, and that's why we'll talk about this one today, but it's in the past, and we'll concentrate on Iowa next week as we get to the Curtis Riggs Show. So a little bit later, we'll be talking about some other things. We're going to go long tonight, folks, because there's no Canaries baseball. I got some good questions for Coach Riggs a little bit later in the broadcast. Coach, looking forward to talking to you.
All right, thanks, Rich.
This segment of the Curtis Riggs Show brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. We'll be back right after this.
No matter what you do, getting the job done.
Breathe easier when you have your ducts cleaned by Waterbury. Call us today.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230 Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And this segment of the Curtis Riggs Show brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. And joining us via the fan line, quarterback with the Sioux Falls Storm, Lorenzo Brown. Zo, how you doing today?
I'm good, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Appreciate your patience. For getting to you. It took a little bit longer to get through the other segments with Coach Riggs. A lot to talk about that game down in Arizona.
Oh, yeah. No problem, man.
I tell you what, when you and I talked earlier on the Coach's Show this season, you had expressed some feelings that you had some disappointments from last year that you wanted to hopefully change this year. Tell us a little bit about that again.
Yeah, I mean, I just... more personal issues. I mean, just my mind wasn't on football as it should have been, just figuring out, going through a rough breakup after so long, and, being away from my kids as I was, and trying to figure out where to live, try to find a better job, and just everything came crumbling at once. But I mean, I got through that rough period, and, I felt like I let my team down. I felt like I let Coach Riggs down, especially, being with him for, since college, and everything he's done for me taught me, and I felt like I owed it to him to rededicate myself and try to come back and level-headed, clear-headed, and try to have a successful season. And here we are. So,
well, I tell you what, there have been highs and there have been lows during the course of this season for everybody. There's a lot. I mean, you come into this season, there's been so many changes in personnel and changes with all of those different types of things. But I want to talk about these last 3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
What has that really done for the Sioux Falls Storm as a team on the inside?
Yeah, I mean, it's got us battle tested, really. It's pulled us together as a team. It's never over till it's over, and you find ways to win and come together as a collective group and get the job done. And that's what it's about, especially trying to make a run at the championship. We got to be one heartbeat, one unit, and that's what we've become. And it's really good to see. Like I told you at the airport, it usually doesn't take this long for us to click as a group, but better late than never. And I'm glad that we're at that point.
What are you seeing? Kind of the subtle signs of a team that is really coming together.
Yeah, I mean, just the time we practice. I mean, the intensity's been turned up in practice, and over the last couple of weeks, it's like your brother, you're fighting with him and you argue, but then again, it's made us better. It really has, especially this last stretch of the season. I think getting to the arena definitely helped us out. With spacing and timing and all that, and it's just good to see. I mean, guys have bought in, they see the end goal and reach, and they're all in, and it's here, and we're almost there.
Well, I tell you what, during games, you get pounded by rushers, you get hammered by tacklers, you get Coach Riggs in your face at times, and even have fans that get on you. How do you keep up and maintain your drive and your passion to succeed and win?
It's just how I was raised. I mean, my dad was my toughest critic, and he always told me, if you're gonna go out there, you go out there and give it your all. You don't play to get hurt. You don't play to not get hurt. You give it your all, and that's just my MO. I mean, since I can Pop Warner football, I'll go out there, try to prove my worth, and I've always been overlooked because of my size and height and all that other stuff. And I've always been one, if I'm given a chance, I'm gonna make the most out of it and try to capitalize on it. And that's just how I'm instilled. And there's never no task that's too big for me. And I don't care how big you are, I'm gonna go against you. And you hit me, I'm gonna get right back up and go on to the next play. And that's just how I am.
Talking with Lorenzo Brown, quarterback with the Sioux Falls Storm. The thing about it is that I appreciate so much that you in some ways have a very short memory in the fact about either what happens on the field, what happens on the sidelines, what happens behind closed doors. It doesn't wind up carrying with you, and that you're able to go out and play with a clear head and concentrate on the moment and make the best of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think, quarterback and defensive back are the two positions you got to have a short memory on. I go out there, throw a pick, especially if I'm at home, or I hear it. I hear it all. But I just, one in one ear, out the other. And even when it comes to Coach Riggs, I mean, he's on me. And if he's not on me, that means he's over me. And, I respect that man and everything he's done for me. And, he used to be the first one to jump on me. And, with the respect, I mean, it's in one ear, not the other. Because, I mean, I know I messed up. I mean, I know that I expect more, you expect more, and I'm going to go out the next drive and try to get it done for you and our team. And, I mean, it's just part of the game. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way how I get coached by him. And it's just, what keeps me going, honestly. So, I mean, I love it, so.
Well, Lorenzo Brown, I take my hat off to you in the way that you have led this ball club as a quarterback and as a leader and as a man. And that's not necessarily in the order of which I hold you in the highest esteem. But I congratulate where you have reached with the Sioux Falls Storm thus far. A couple weeks from now, it all comes to a head. And my very best to you and the rest of the ball club as you take on the Iowa Barnstormers.
I appreciate it, and I hope we have a lot of Storm fans out there. I mean, it's only a couple-hour drive, so hopefully you can get a good crowd, get a good fan base for us, and bring that trophy back to Sioux Falls where it belongs.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much, Lorenzo Brown.
I appreciate it, man. You have a good one.
Okay, thanks so much. Lorenzo Brown, quarterback with the Sioux Falls Storm. This segment brought to you by Lewis Pharmacies. Get in, get out, feel better. Coming up next, we'll talk to the head coach. This is the Curtis Riggs Show on FM 98.1, AM 1230, Sports Radio KWSN.
Hey guys, Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler here. I'm here at one of my favorite places in the entire world, the wrestling room. But if there's one thing we know about wrestling rooms, they can get extremely dirty. We're talking skin infections, we're talking about funk, we're talking about smelly armpits, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. So, my friends at Pure and Clean Sports came up with an awesome solution. Spray it right on your skin, wipe it off, smells great, keeps you clean from the time you leave the mats to the time you can get home and shower. Not only is it the greatest skin defense in the entire world, it's the safest. Check them out, pureandcleansports.com.
Your body is a complex arrangement of bone and tissue that requires only the best to maintain it. At Orthopedic Institute, that's our specialty. Our services have been specifically tailored to provide the best orthopedic care in the region. Orthopedics is what we do. That's why Orthopedic Institute is the one to trust to keep your body in motion.
Waiting to see a doctor?
What's taking so long?
It can take a while.
I don't have time for this.
Or longer than a while.
We've been here 2 hours.
Forever.
Hello?
What would you say if there was another option?
Finally.
Yes.
It's about time.
We're inclined to agree. It's about time for the best patient care. Sioux Falls Urgent Care.
You're listening to the Curtis Riggs Show, brought to you by Sioux Falls Specialty Hospital and by Orthopedic Institute on 98.1, 1230, Sports Radio, KWSN. Back to the show. Here's Rich Rosti.
And this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. 917 South Cliff Avenue, sliced fresh, baked fresh, made fresh. Come see what fresh really is at Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. And he is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm. And, Coach, you know, when you think about this season, the last 3 games, and, you know, there's been these close games. The Iowa Barnstormer game at home, 18-point deficit you overcame, and then you blocked a field goal for a safety, then the triple overtime over Green Bay, and now the overtime win on the road over Arizona. How has those changed your ball club, or has it?
Well, I think it has. I think even leading up to it, but really coming out when these games happened was the dynamics of our team chemistry. I mean, I think this team's really gotten closer. They believe in each other. You know, when the offense struggles, the defense will come out and, hey, we got you here, and likewise. And you know, it's just sometimes it takes something, either a personnel change or an event, these close games or whatever, to really get guys to believe in each other and play for each other.
I'm going to just put out some comparisons, and they're going to sound at first like they're very close to each other, but there's kind of some subtle differences, and I'll kind of point that out. But is this team now more, regarding their demeanor, is this team more serious or carefree?
Well, I think they don't quite take things for granted like maybe they did early on.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of, I think, what you're going with the carefree. I think it goes twofold, because I think the one thing that playing at home, we come out so lackluster in that Green Bay game, and I don't know if it was carefree or just feeling of, you know, we're going to win. It's just a matter of time. And they found a way, though. They still found a way, and that's where I think this team is so different than so many in the past.
Also, as far as the team, is it regarding being coachable or being coached? Is this team more attentive to what you're telling them, or more confident in what they can do with what you're telling them?
I think confident. Yeah, I think at times they question and wonder, and I think it's still a weakness. I think defensively, I think sometimes the guys will question when a team makes a play against us rather than just, hey, believing in what we're doing and do it well and make a team have to beat us. Don't let us beat ourselves. And that's the same offensively. Just don't beat ourselves. And that's been a weakness for us, but I think we're getting better at it, though.
Talking with Storm head coach Curtis Riggs, and I wanted to ask this question. As far as the teammates with each other, are they more interested in each other or more supportive of each other?
Well, I think supportive. Yeah, I think they have grown to where they're gaining more interest in each other, though, as a team itself. I mean, I think you always have cliques within your team, but I think more people have developed relationships now, especially the last 4 weeks. I think, like traveling this week was fantastic. I mean, the guys really get along. They knew what the purpose of the trip was, and they all looked after each other, because when we leave, and you know this, Rich, when we leave on a trip where we fly, I mean, we're leaving. And our approach is, these are grown men. They better get on the bus to get to the airport, or they can find their own way home. They know how to do that. And this one, it was a 1 or 2 minutes pass, and the guys were really worried about, hey, so-and-so, get so-and-so, and there's years past where no one would say a word. But I think they have come together, though.
As far as the individuals themselves, do you feel that they've become more determined or more committed to the Storm program?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think committed. I think that there's a common goal that all of them, they are committed to winning a title. And I think they know now, after even just some of the ups and downs of this season, maybe some of the things that were hurting us, and now seeing that to do this, you really got to be bought in, and you got to really do it together. You can't do it on your own. It's just not going to work, and I think they see that.
And the last question that I have for you may sound a little bit odd, but I think when you really start thinking about it, there's a real reason for me asking this question. Is this team having fun, or is it understanding their current success?
Yeah, that's good. I think both. I think it is having fun. And the fun is coming from, they like being around each other now, and they like playing for each other. And I think they realize that is what is leading to the success.
Okay.
And then, of course, afterwards, yeah, when you win, that's fun. That's easy. But it's playing for each other, being around each other, liking being around each other, and that leading to that success.
And I think that the thing that you touched on, and I tried to touch on here, is just the element of understanding what it's taken to get to this point and what it's going to take to finish.
Yeah, and we're close, I found it. I did an interview earlier today talking about how, hey, we were first place. We won this league. Yeah, we tied, but we were 11-3, and so many people just were like, "Oh my gosh, this team's so bad." And we had some ups and downs, but any season, as you're going through, and especially as other teams get better, and your team has new players, and we don't have 14 guys that have been with us for 8 years now. I mean, there's mistakes made, and it takes a while to form a chemistry and a bond, and the guys fought through all of it, and they're still fighting through it. I mean, Rich, really, after that Green Bay game, I mean, I was pretty down. I was just, this should not be a team we're struggling with, even though they fight hard. Green Bay does. I think it's a team we should have blown away, but you have those. And we overcame it, And then that's also what led us to go in Arizona in a very tough environment and get a win.
Well, Coach, my very best to you. Congratulations on reaching this point. We've had some great games, some great milestones, but it ain't over till it's over. And there's one more game coming up down in Iowa against the Iowa Barnstormers for the United Bowl. And it would be awfully fun to finish it off on the road, as we did so many years ago in 2005.
It would. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, so hopefully we can cap it off.
Well, thanks a lot, Coach. Have a good week off. We'll talk to you next week right here on your show.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
He is the head coach of the Sioux Falls Storm, and this segment brought to you by Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. Come see what fresh really is, 917 South Cliff Avenue. Sliced fresh, made fresh, baked fresh. It's fresh stuff over there. Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs. We'll be back with the final segment right after this.
Storm fans, during the months of March and April, you can take part in a very unique Season of Change fundraising project, exclusively at all 6 Caribou Coffee Einstein Brothers bagel stores in Sioux Falls. When you place your orders, look for the big jar at the countertop. Your donation of any and all loose change will